So you might have been expecting that specky chap as your voiceover guy for this video. Well, tough, you got me instead. Life is a parade of disappointment, and I am just the latest float to pass you by. And you know what else is disappointing? Poor video game ports. That was a smooth segue, write that one down. The Nintendo Switch is undoubtedly one of the most popular consoles of all time, and deservedly so. The Switch's duality of handheld and home console works amazingly well. The console has had some impressive ports, including the likes of Hades, Doom Eternal, and Disco Elysium. Sadly, the Switch isn't quite as powerful as its peers, and some ports just don't hold up on Switch. Some of them may still be great games on other platforms, but they're not as good on Switch. So we've compiled a list of 10 of the worst Switch ports that frankly don't cut the mustard. Hello viewers, it's good to see you. I'm Will, and today we are looking at the 10 worst Nintendo Switch ports of all time. By the way, don't forget to subscribe and ding the bell for more great videos, or don't, I can't tell you what to do. Number 10, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy are three of the greatest 3D platformers ever. Though your mileage may vary on Sunshine, it depends on how much you like suffering. Considering this, you may be wondering why Super Mario 3D All-Stars only has an 82% score on Metacritic. The issue is that the port isn't necessarily bad, but it's frankly lazy. When Nintendo released the original Super Mario All-Stars on SNES many years ago, it featured all new graphical upgrades for the original NES titles. This isn't the case with Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which has kept the games exactly as they were and has led to some performance issues when playing Super Mario Sunshine and a 4:3 aspect ratio when playing Mario 64. Now don't get me wrong, Super Mario 3D All-Stars is still a great package, but it does feel a bit cheap that Nintendo didn't give these games the time they needed to in order to upgrade them for Switch. I guess this plumber isn't being paid by the hour. Number 9, Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night is the Castlevania-inspired vampire em-up that took consoles by storm back in 2019. While we are used to hearing about Kickstarter video game disasters, Bloodstained was quite the reverse. It released on multiple consoles and received praise from most who played it. However, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night on Switch is easily the worst console to purchase the game on. One of the most common complaints about Bloodstained is the amount of crashes and lag the game suffers from. Even years after release, after updates and patches, the game still struggled. You pick up a vampire game to suck blood, but unfortunately, Bloodstained just sucked. If you've got no other way to play Bloodstained, then yeah, the Switch version will do, but if you can play it elsewhere, you should. Number 8, The Outer Worlds. Obsidian Entertainment are the fantastic developers behind Fallout New Vegas, which is regarded by many fans to be the best Fallout game in the whole series. So when Obsidian announced they were creating a new open-world first-person RPG, fans jumped for joy, and they were right to do so. The Outer Worlds is one of the most enjoyable sci-fi RPGs of the last 10 years. However, the Switch is not the best way to enjoy this game. The Xbox and PlayStation releases easily offer better graphics and performance, as does its PC counterpart. The Switch's textures look muddy and the performance leaves a lot to be desired. It's certainly not a deal breaker, and if you've got no other way to play this gem, then the Switch port will certainly do the job. But once again, it's a port of a game that can be bought elsewhere with better quality. Number 7, Minecraft. Minecraft looks awful on Switch. It's blocky and the textures are all pixelated.
I make a joke.
Seriously though, how can anyone make a bad port of Minecraft? One of the most popular games of all time, Minecraft's popularity is derived from being simple yet engaging. Another reason why Minecraft is so popular is the fact that it can be ported over to almost anything with its voxel style graphics, meaning that even the most basic of systems can handle a Minecraft port. The main issue in Minecraft on Switch is down to load times. Players have reported spending minutes waiting for Minecraft to load, and while years ago that wouldn't be out of the ordinary, today it's almost unthinkable. Mojang, the developers of Minecraft, have been very good at releasing patches and improving the versions of their game across many platforms, but even in 2023, players have reported these issues. So if you have a Switch and you fancy playing the blocky behemoth, then you're just gonna have to be patient and wait for that thing to load. Number 6. Blair Witch. For the record, this game should have been called Blair Switch, and it annoys me that it isn't to this very day. Why won't you return my calls, Bloober Team? Blair Witch is the latest video game adaptation of the Blair Witch Project mythos, and it is a first-person horror experience that hit Xbox One and PC back in 2019. While reviews were mixed across the board, it was the Nintendo Switch port that received the worst reception. Much like other games on this list, it was graphical issues that caused Blair Witch to struggle. Blair Witch's PS4, Xbox One and PC versions all look lovely, and while we didn't expect such levels of graphical enhancement on the Switch, the final results were a little less than expected. Blair Witch suffers from terrible pop-in, with assets loading when the player gets close to them, which in an atmospheric horror game is distracting. Muddy, blurry textures mixed with a dog that blends into the background makes Blair Switch a disappointing port. Number 5. Mainlining. The Switch has become one of the biggest selling consoles of all time, partly because it has embraced indie gaming like no console has before, meaning that porting to the Switch is a tempting prospect for many small developers. But just because you can, doesn't always mean you should. Mainlining belongs to a genre that doesn't get much attention: hacking games. Similar in graphical style to another indie darling, Papers, Please, it focuses on hacking in a cyberpunk future. Mainlining has mostly positive reviews on Steam and used mouse and keyboard controls of PC gaming to replicate the feel of hacking. However, the Switch doesn't have a keyboard or mouse, and instead relies on an on-screen keyboard and the analog sticks to replicate the gameplay of its PC brethren. Sadly, this misses the entire point of the game. We want to sit hunched over our computer, tapping away confidently and uttering, "Amen." Sitting at your computer, role-playing as a cyberpunk hacker is a lot of fun, but the lack of keyboard and mouse on Switch strips away the uniqueness of the game, and frankly, Mainlining isn't a good enough game on its own merit. Number 4. Pillars of Eternity. As a company, Obsidian Entertainment is a spiritual successor to the 90s studio Black Isle. Black Isle was a developer and publisher which put out classic RPGs such as Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale. In 2015, Obsidian released Pillars of Eternity, a spiritual successor for old-school PC RPGs. It's an RPG which features party combat with 3D characters in pre-rendered environments that really hark back to those classic PC RPGs, and it received a lot of praise, even on Switch. However, the user score on Metacritic tells a different story, holding a 2.8 out of 10. While classic RPGs have been generally translated well to the Switch, players found themselves facing bugs and crashes, some even claiming the game to be totally broken. To make matters worse, publisher Versus Evil announced that in 2021 they will be stopping support for the Switch version, leaving the game as it is, bugs and all. Sadly, no amount of D20 critical roles are going to help this game now. Number 3. FIFA Legacy Editions. It was the year of our Lord 2023 and Electronic Arts have finally released a football game on Switch running on its in-house Frostbite engine. EA Sports FC now runs on the same engine that it does on other formats, but for the longest time this wasn't the case. It seems that EA either wouldn't or couldn't port FIFA to Switch and instead used an older version of Switch which is based on the Ignite engine instead. With EA now using Frostbite for most of its project, it was surprising that they continue to use the Ignite engine for the Switch version and instead label these versions as Legacy Editions. I wonder if I could sell my second-hand car as new by labeling it a Legacy Edition. Legacy Editions were little more than roster updates, and essentially EA were pumping out the same game for years. With the loss of the FIFA license, EA were forced to rebrand their football game as EA Sports FC, and it seems they've taken the decision to bring Frostbite to Switch, and players can now expect a similar experience to the likes on PS4 or the Xbox One versions of the game. But surely this proves that EA could have ported the Frostbite engine to Switch at any point. It seems that EA were using the old version of FIFA as a way to make money with putting in the littlest effort possible. The FIFA 19 to 23 Legacy Editions were totally pointless, and EA essentially ripped off anyone who purchased those games. Number 2. Ark: Survival Evolved. The advantage of modern games is that a bad game doesn't have to stay bad. This is something we call No Man's Sky syndrome. Ark Survival Evolved doesn't have the best reputation as a video game, especially on consoles. Other console versions have received mixed reviews, though the game does have a pretty solid user base. Ark isn't a stranger to controversy either. For instance, releasing a paid DLC while the game was still unfinished and in early access annoyed many fans. Still, Ark has been a huge success, selling over 5 million copies on PC and Xbox alone. Controversy and slightly wonky reviews do not compare to the mess that Ark Survival Evolved was at release on Switch. At one stage, this game was ranked as the 9th worst game ever to be released on Switch, and reviews slated its awful graphics, with some saying they were inferior to smartphone ports of Ark. Performance problems, slowdown, pop-in and blurry textures all helped to turn this unbalanced and awkward dinosaur survival game into an outright mess. But it wouldn't remain that way, with Studio Wildcard patching the game and making huge improvements. While it's not the best port of Ark, it's certainly better than it once was. Number 1. WWE 2K18. The WWE games are once some of the greatest wrestling games on the market, but over the years they've become less and less like Brock Lesnar and more like Ryback. The WWE series of games hasn't had the sunniest days since 2K Games took over the license. WWE 2K20 was seen as a low point in the series and was dogged by bugs and glitches. However, the review score of WWE 2K20 paled in comparison to easily the worst version of a WWE game in recent years, the Switch port of WWE 2K18. WWE 2K18 was thoroughly lambasted by critics for not being good enough to be released as a commercial product. The game had seen an understandable graphical downgrade from its Xbox One and PS4 counterparts, although this didn't help 2K18's performance. Glitches and slowdown plagued 2K18, with any matches featuring more than 2 wrestlers, as well as entrances causing performance issues. Ranking worse than the likes of Backyard Wrestling and WCW Backstage Assault, WWE 2K18 on Switch is one of the worst wrestling games ever released. That was our list of some of the worst Switch ports of all time. Are there any other awful Switch ports that we missed out on? Why not let us know in the comments? I've been Will, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the future.